In 1999, two treasure hunters with metal detectors crept onto a forested hill in Germany at night. Their detectors screamed, they dug into the dirt, and they pulled out a heavy green disk of bronze. Onto its surface were fixed a golden sun, a golden moon, and a scatter of golden stars. They had no idea they were holding the oldest known map of the night sky anywhere on Earth. This is the Nebra Sky Disc, and it is roughly 3,600 years old. But the men who found it were not archaeologists. They were criminals, and they would soon be doomed by what they dug up. The disc was buried on a hilltop called the Mittelberg, near the town of Nebra in eastern Germany. Whoever made it lived around 1600 BC, in the early Bronze Age, long before Greece or Rome. These were not primitive people, because the disc proves they understood the heavens in stunning detail. Get the sky wrong, and you planted too early, and a late frost could kill the crop and doom the village. For these people, reading the stars was not a hobby. A single mistake could mean death by starvation. But here is the strange thing. For 100 years, nobody knew this object even existed. It lay hidden in the German soil for over 3,000 years, until those two looters tore it free. And the moment they sold it, they triggered a criminal hunt that would end in a police sting. But first, you have to understand what these criminals had actually stolen from that hill. The disc is about 12 inches wide, made of bronze that has aged to a deep, beautiful green. Onto that green surface, ancient craftsmen hammered shapes out of pure gold and set them like jewels. There is a full golden circle for the sun and a crescent for the moon hanging in the dark. And scattered around them are 32 golden stars, frozen in place across the bronze sky. But 7 of those stars are clustered tightly together in one unmistakable little group. That cluster is the Pleiades, a star group every ancient farmer in Europe would have known by heart. And here is why that tiny cluster matters more than anything else on the disk. In the Bronze Age, the Pleiades appeared and vanished from the sky at key turning points of the year. Their rising told farmers when to harvest, and their return told them when to sow again. Now imagine you are a Bronze Age chieftain, and 1,000 lives depend on you reading this disc correctly. Read it right, and your people feast. Read it wrong, and they starve and die in the long winter dark. So the Nebra disc was not just art. Experts believe it was a working astronomical instrument. It may have been used to keep the sun calendar and the moon calendar locked together in time. And here is why that was quite literally a matter of life and death across the ancient world. Without that knowledge, an entire harvest could fail, and a whole community could starve through winter. 2 golden arcs on the edges mark exactly where the sun rises and sets across the year. From the Mittelberg hilltop, those angles line up perfectly with the distant mountains on the horizon. These Bronze Age people had turned a sheet of bronze into a precise machine for reading the sky. And the gold itself tells a second, far-traveled story that stunned the scientists. The disc was also secretly changed at least 4 separate times over the centuries before it was buried. Someone later added the golden arcs, and then a curved golden boat sailing along its lower edge. That golden boat may show the sunship, ferrying the dying sun through the underworld each night. It hints these people did not just measure the sky. They told sacred stories about life and death in it. When researchers tested the metals, they found the gold had come from a river in distant Cornwall. That is hundreds of miles away across ancient Europe, carried by trade routes we barely understand. The copper came from the Alps, and the tin from far away, all melted into one sacred object. So this single disc connects a web of trade stretching across an entire continent 3,600 years ago. But here is the twist that almost ruined everything for the scientists studying it. For years, some experts feared the entire disk was nothing but an elaborate modern forgery. If they were right, the oldest sky map on Earth would be exposed as a worthless, embarrassing fake. But microscopic corrosion deep in the metal, impossible to fake, finally proved it was genuinely ancient. But now we have to return to the two criminals who tore this treasure out of the ground. Before we reach that courtroom, you need to see how close this treasure came to vanishing forever. In Germany, any treasure found in the ground legally belongs to the state, so they had committed a crime. They quickly sold the disc for around 31,000 German marks to a black market dealer. From there, it passed from one shady dealer to the next, and at any moment it could have vanished forever. Each handover risked scratching or destroying a 3,600-year-old object that was truly priceless. The looters had gambled their freedom on a single buried lump of green bronze. Rumors of the strange star disk spread through the underground world of stolen antiquities. Eventually, those rumors reached a determined archaeologist named Harold Meller. Meller knew that if he did not act, this treasure could vanish into a private vault forever. So in 2002, he worked with police to set a trap in a hotel basement in Basel, Switzerland. Meller posed as a wealthy buyer, while undercover Swiss police waited just out of sight. When the sellers finally revealed the priceless disc, the police moved in and seized it. The Nebra Sky Disc was finally safe, but its long ordeal had nearly destroyed its history. Because the looters had ripped it from the ground, crucial clues about its burial vanished forever. Even so, when investigators returned to the Middelburg, the looters showed them the exact spot. There they found the disc had been buried with bronze swords, axes, and spiral arm rings. It seems the disc was buried as an offering around 1600 BC, and soon after, its makers vanished from history. Nobody knows for certain why these people buried their greatest treasure and walked away. Some think a new religion swept in. The old sky knowledge was buried, and its keepers died and were forgotten. As for the two treasure hunters, their crime finally caught up with them in court. They were convicted and doomed to prison, their freedom lost, for looting and trafficking the priceless disc. The black market dealers who handled it were punished as well, their schemes finally ruined. Today, the Nebra Sky Disc sits safely in a museum in Halle, Germany, seen by millions. Those two looters had very nearly sold off a piece of humanity's soul for a fistful of cash. In 2013, the United Nations added it to its register of the most important documents in human memory. So what does this stolen bronze disc actually tell you about the people who made it? Lose an object like this to a private vault, and a whole chapter of human memory dies in the dark forever. It tells you that 3,600 years ago, people you would call primitive were mapping the cosmos. And it tells you that without two greedy criminals, the oldest map of the sky would have stayed dead and buried in the dark.